Hello, I'm Bill Monroe, and welcome to 2-Minute Talk Tips. This week's tip: maintain your regular caffeine consumption. A lot of times, if we're going to be giving a talk, especially in the morning, we may be tempted to change our regular pattern of caffeine consumption. If we're feeling nervous or anxious, we may try to distract ourselves by just consuming more of that wonderful coffee. Or you could always find yourself staying up way too late the night before, like I often do when preparing this podcast, in order to practice your presentation. Or perhaps even to just socialize with other members of your team or other folks who are at the event. Now, there may be very good reasons in general to change your caffeine consumption and to lower it, but the day of your big presentation or the day you are speaking in front of an audience that you find yourself nervous about is not the time to make those changes. Increasing your caffeine consumption when you're nervous does not give you more energy. You already have all of the nervous energy you need. You don't need any more. You've already got the adrenaline coursing through your system, raising your heart rate, raising your blood pressure, keeping you on edge. Varying your caffeine consumption and just going for more is just going to give you more anxiety. Plus, it can cause some other undesirable impacts, such as poorly timed, say, digestive challenges. Most importantly, it breaks your rhythm. Now you've got to deal with the impacts of this additional caffeine, and that's the last thing you want when you're getting ready to go on stage. So the bottom line is that you are better off maintaining your regular consumption level. Don't try to go higher. Don't try to go lower. Eat like you normally do, get a good night's sleep, and give your body something that it can count on. Take out that variable of a wild swing in caffeine consumption. Stick around, and after the break, we're going to talk about rituals. Welcome back. Now, this episode may be a little bit shorter and a little bit less actionable than some of my episodes typically are, but something's been on my mind. I actually just came back from the Black Panther movie, and I really enjoyed this movie. I'm not going to get into any spoilers here. I will say that, in my experience, it is not the absolute most amazing movie to be made that a lot of people feel it is. I think the movie actually is suffering a little bit now from some of the general excitement in the press, which has really ramped up the excitement level of this movie and set the expectations so high that it's really put the movie in an unfortunate challenge of trying to meet ridiculously high expectations. That said, it's still a great movie and one I would definitely recommend seeing. And if you haven't seen the other Marvel superhero movies, that's fine. You don't need to have seen any of them in order to understand what's happening in Black Panther and to really enjoy it. It's also been an important movie for a lot of cultural reasons as well. And plenty of other people have talked about that, so I'm not going to dive deeply into that. But one of the things that caught my eye and got me thinking in that movie was there is a section where the people of Wakanda crown their new king. And they have an entire ritual that goes along with that, with call and response, with dance, with people assembling at a specific point in the country to participate in this ritual for the new king. And that got me thinking about rituals in general, and how rituals can impact the public speaker. Now, we see rituals all the time, and it's not just in pop culture things. Rituals form the basis of many religious practices. I was raised Catholic and attended 16 years of Catholic schools, and I can tell you now that you can walk into pretty much any large group of people, and if you want to find the Catholics, just go ahead and raise your fingers to your forehead while you say "in the name of the," and suddenly you'll most likely see the other folks who are raised Catholic simply respond in kind as they go on to make the sign of the cross. It's something that we've done from our youth and is so ingrained it becomes sort of a natural habit, a natural response to that as a part of that ritual for opening prayer. More specifically, I went to Archbishop Malloy High School back in the late 80s. And the school was founded by a religious order called the Marist Brothers. At the end of the prayers each day at school, there would be another call and response. The person who was leading the prayer would say, "Blessed Marcelin Champagne," and we would respond, "Pray for us." And then "Good Saint Anne," and the same response, "Pray for us." This was actually before the Catholic Church made Marcelin Champagne a saint. But that added ritual of celebrating those two people important in the history of the school and in the history of the religious order became a part of the ritual of every prayer at the school. And if you have a religious background, I'm sure you can easily come up with other examples of rituals, whether they are the small day-to-day ones that are part of the practitioner's lives, or whether they are the big weekly or annual rituals that an entire community participates in. And of course, it's not just religious either. There are important civic rituals. The opening of a school day or a city council meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance that most U.S. citizens can simply recite without even thinking about it. Or the way folks stand for the national anthem at a sporting event. And this is another important example of the power that rituals have for sending a message and for telling a story. As we look at the news over the last couple of years and we see professional football players who, instead of standing during the national anthem, take a knee in protest of racial inequality in the country, that becomes an important statement of a point of view, specifically because of its presence in the context of this other ritual. Rituals, of course, fill our personal lives, whether we are talking about birthday parties, wedding celebrations, important anniversaries where a couple may even have their own personal private ritual that's just for them, to the funeral rituals that surround individual families, to even getting beyond those really big things, to the personal rituals that evolve in our social lives. For example, I recently got back from the JoCo Cruise 8, the Jonathan Colton fan cruise. I talked a lot about this last year. And one of the rituals that happens on that cruise is that instead of just coming out and telling us the latest news before a big concert happens, before each of the main shows, one of the hosts of the cruise, Paul Saborin, would come out and he would greet the entire audience with "Good morning, students," or "Good evening, students," and everybody else would respond with "Good morning, Principal Saborin," or "Good evening, Principal Saborin," in sort of a sing-songy student response. It's sort of become just, again, an ongoing ritual in this part of the community that binds everyone together and that everybody is able to participate in and is amused by. And it now becomes less about the commentary and the whole faux school meeting notes type of thing, and more about just the theme of what ties us all together. We are all able to participate in that because we are all part of that same community. We all belong. We also see it, of course, in corporate life. When I worked for CompUSA in the mid-90s, a major computer and electronics retailer here in the U.S., many stores would end their morning meetings by having all of the employees chant before the store opens each day, "Every day is a great day at CompUSA. Woo!" And to get everybody pumped and excited. And yeah, it was silly. And yeah, it was cheesy. But you know what? It became a part of it became a part of the community in those stores. At new store grand openings, it was sort of traditional. When you first open the store for the very first time, all of the employees would be there applauding as the very first customers walked in the door. And rituals can be a part of corporate life, whether they are through corporate awards, through the ways organizations run their meetings, the standards for how they do things, how they roll out things at their national meetings and their big presentations. There's all sorts of different opportunities for rituals to play a part in professional life. Now, here's the thing about these rituals, though. They may not serve a logical purpose in the day-to-day, in the immediate moment, setting aside questions of eternal salvation and all of that fun stuff. But the logic of rituals isn't what matters. Back in episode 35, I talked about logos, pathos, and ethos as all being important elements of the ultimate truth you're able to convince folks of when you're speaking. And you can go ahead and check that out. Just go to 2minutetalktips.com/episode 35. The question of rituals typically is one of pathos. It's about that emotional feeling, that emotional bond that connects everyone together in that community, and that is able to connect you as a speaker to that community. So why does this matter? Well, the use of rituals can connect you to the audience. Participating in the right rituals helps to build that community. It helps that you participate in that community, whether it's going to be a mantra or a good luck sign or a tip of the hat or tapping an airplane or whatever it is about that broader bond. Ignoring, scoffing, or mocking a community's rituals will brand you as an outsider of that community and anger that audience, because why should they trust an outsider who is not willing to at least try to be one of them? Just look at the vitriol that's been heaped upon the football players who are engaging in a different ritual during the national anthem. If you don't want to participate in a community's rituals, that makes you an outsider to that community in that community's eyes. You're someone who is specifically saying you don't want to be one of them. You are rejecting them. And people are much less likely to believe you when you've gone ahead and rejected them. You are burning pathos. You are losing credibility. People start to ask, why should they believe you? And once they're at that point, then your presentation had better be damn convincing, because you've just made your job a heck of a lot harder. But if you can participate, and even if you can create your own rituals for an organization that you're a part of, you help with your own credibility and you can be seen as more effective. So that's it for this week. Go ahead and think about the rituals that are part of your life, that are part of your family, that are a part of your organization. How can you leverage those rituals to build deeper bonds? Consider what other rituals you can introduce to your team meetings that will help center everyone in a specific time and place, and really to help everyone be more fully present for that meeting, for that presentation, for that talk. Before your next big talk, make sure you go ahead and maintain your regular caffeine consumption. And of course, as always, don't get best, get better. Thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you next week.
Two-Minute Talk Tips is a proud production of the Currently Speaking Podcast Network.